It was a sunny day in every forest. Zecora was out looking for some herbs for her to make some potions to sell in town. While she was looking, she came across a camping site. She had been in this part of the forest many times before, but never noticed this before. But when she is closely looking, she discovered to find that this camping site, or this site, has been recently been set up. As she was looking around, she heard some footsteps behind her. She quickly turned around and saw not a pony, not a timber wolf, but in fact a zebra. A zebra which Zecora would never expect her to find. There was a male zebra. He was really surprised to see a female zebra in every forest. She asks him what or what he's doing in this every forest. He explains that he is a traveler. He has recently set up a small camp in this forest as for a temporary home. Then she asks him for his name, which he explains is Fausto. And then he asks her who her name is, and she explains is Zecora. And he asks her what she is doing in this forest. She explains that she is in the forest looking for herbs to make some potions for at home. And he asks her if she lives in the forest, which she said yes. She had been living here in this forest for a little quite a while. Then he asks her if she is from Farazi, which she really confirmed that she is. And it turned out Fausto, which his name is, that he also is from Farazi, but he left home for nearly 5 years ago. He wanted to be a traveler. He wanted to see the whole world out there. Even hearing stories about other zebras or travelers who came to Farazi by ships, hearing stories around about this wild world, this entire world. He wanted to see the things by himself. So he had written down some names of places that he wanted to explore. And he heard that every forest is supposed to be one of the most dangerous forests in the world. So he wanted to see that for himself. And he had in fact did encounter several different animals like the timber wolves, a manticore. But nothing much as he had any problem with. He was very skilled in some self-defense techniques as a fast runner, and he easily quickly learned about the layouts around the forest so he can take that for an advantage as for protection and so find a way to prevent any other animals from finding him or even stopping him. Then he asked her if she was hungry. In fact, she said she was a bit get hungry, but still quite early. It was around noon. So he offered her to make something to eat, which she really much accepted. So they would sit down and they start talking about more about their times from Farazi, and even when he asked Zecora what was her purpose leaving their homeland in the first place, she said that she also wanted to explore, but when she came across Epic Forest, for some reason when she came across it for the first time, she felt home. She felt it's like this forest was like the right place for her to be looking for. Even despite she lived in a big city once before. But she wanted to explore the world like Favastu did. But when she came across Epic Forest, she didn't have the heart to leave. She felt more home here and than any other place in the world. So she found this big tree where she made it as her home. Ever since then, she even found a lot of different herbs that she made potions for. She explained that in the beginning of when she had used to start moving or living in every forest, ponies in Ponyville actually was afraid of her due to the fact she was not a pony but a zebra. And he asked her if that is still in the case, but she said no. Thanks to some of her friends who managed to convince the bossy town that she wasn't even evil. She wasn't a sorceress, person called, and in fact she had made a lot of new friends from Ponyville, including she is in fact selling some of her potions in town. Some in for the local spa or other ponies who needs some potions for sleeping problems like that. And Fausto was really happy to hear from that. And from that, both of them actually start enjoying their lunch together. And she was in fact she was really happy to have met another zebra for a while. Even though when she do misses her home, but even when Fausto had asked Zecora if there's anyone back home, any pony that back home that she still miss. And in fact, she do miss some of her family, but she is still in keeping in contact with them by letters over time. Even though she wished sometimes that she will just can go home, but she had actually started growing so attached to Ponyville and Everby Forest. And since Farazi is quite far away from Ponyville, or at least from Equestria at least, she wasn't sure if she would be able just to leave. But Fausto said, if you're willing to go to your home, to our home, see your family, you should take the opportunity because one day you may have lost the chance to talk to them. And for that, Zecora realized he had a point. So she thought about it and took his idea for considered to go back to Farazi for a visit. After the lunch, she thanked them and went back in the forest to find some more herbs before going home. But the same day, while she was making some potions, she still thought about this idea that Faustus said to her that take the opportunity and the chance to go back home to see her family before it was too late. Because he had a point. Ever since she had even seen her parents for such a long time. And since her parents was getting older, and one day they won't be around anymore, so she decided she is going to go back home, but only for a visit, maybe for a week or so, to see that her parents and maybe spend time with some of her childhood friends again. So, by the next day, she went into town, delivered some potions to the spa, and some other customers she had some was needing some of the potions when she encountered Apple Bloom and Applejack at the market. They were happy to see her, and she explained to them that ever since Apple Bloom was going to see her Zecora within the next couple of days to learn more about the potions. But she said that she had to reschedule her teaching of Apple Bloom for about a week. Apple Bloom and Applejack was a little bit curious to know exactly why. So she explained that she is going to leave Ponyville for about a week. They asked where she was going. She was going back home to Farazi to see her parents. They asked her for any particular reason, though Zecora didn't want to keep it a secret. But after all, they were close friends of hers. Since they were close friends of hers, so she explained that she encountered a zebra in every forest. Both of her friends was just looking at each other and just smiled and said, "Another zebra?" And she explained yes, and that his name is Fausto. Apple Bloom asked if he's living there like her, but she said no. He's a traveler, and that he's only staying in every forest for a short time before traveling on. But he had actually convinced her to go back home to see her parents once again. After all, since they were getting older, and one day they won't be around anymore. Which, that was something Applejack could rely on to. So sometimes she wished that she could spend one more day with her parents, just for one day, because she missed those parents so much. And Sakura understands from that. So, so Applejack and Apple Bloom said that they will miss her, but wishes that she has a good time in, well, back home in Farazi. She thanked them, and a few days later, she went on her travel back to Farazi by train. By surprising, Fausto had actually decided to go back home along with her, because he wanted to go back home also to see his mother, who was very lonely after his father passed away when he was about 10. And on the train, though, they actually talking about more about their experience of traveling, even especially more about Fausto, who has been traveling around in Equestria and different places like Saudi Arabia, Mauritania, and even more than that. He had actually been experienced many different cultures, many different ponies over time, even though he was actually a experienced traveler. But when they arrived to Farazi, they were actually surprised to see not much has changed in their hometown, or at least it was not the part from where the station was. Zecora's parents was really surprised to see the daughter was back home, but unless they were just still happy to see that she was well, and they asked her for what reason she was back in Farazi. She explains that she was there to visit them. She hadn't even seen them for a while herself, only by letters, so she wanted to spend enough time with them. When she explained that she ran into another zebra a couple of days ago in a back home. They asked her what this zebra's name was, and explained that his name was Fausto. They both realized Fausto is a well-known zebra in his town, apparently. It's a fact he's so well-known because of his traveling. Because every time when he sends a letter back home, he always describes some of his own travels, and his mother was so very proud of her son that he has been traveling so far and wide, but willing to come home to share his traveling experience that zebras, and including his own mother. They even had asked her if during her time in Ponyville and Every Forest, if there was any pony that she had been getting close to, like falling in love with. But she says that no, that she hadn't even thought much about that after she moved there. Though her parents are aware that ponies in time at first was a much afraid of her. But over time they actually started opening up and he became friends with her became friends with her after then that some of her new friends actually revealed that she wasn't that evil. Even when that happened, her mother asked Zecora if the ponies in town wouldn't that would accept her as a friend, or they still had feared her if she would have come back home to Farazi, or maybe travel somewhere else. She had even thought about going back to Farazi because she explained even if the ponies in town never want to accept her as a friend, still feared her, she would still have lived in Every Forest because most ponies wouldn't even go in there due to the fact one of the most dangerous creatures like manticores, timber wolves, and even uncontrolled weather patterns. So, but Zecora said that even if she did find a pony to be with, it would be by her own choice, which her parents completely understand. But she was happy to spend a whole week with her parents and some other childhood friends. But she promised that she will be back more often than from now on. and they were happy to hear that. On her way back to Ponyville, she noticed there was another passenger on the train, and apparently it was Faust. She asked him why he suddenly was going back to Ponyville life with her. Well, he explains that he's in fact going back to Ponyville from there he's going to traveling on his next destination was located far distant from Ponyville. So on their way back, they talk about their time in Farazi, even when he actually learned that Zecora's parents had asked her if she had found some special sound pony. But he but on laughed and said that maybe one day they will. Maybe she will find. After all, she was still in her early 20s. But Zecora did ask if he wanted to stay with her in her hut for maybe a day or two, just to get her rest and maybe to relax before his traveling, which she accepted. So for the next 2 days after that, they actually spent a lot of time. He even had helped her gather some more herbs and even other medicinal plants around in the forest. Even made that helped her to make some potions. But then the day when he came, she actually gave him some two pouches, small leather bags contained some powder that was meant medicine herbs for him, which he accepted. But he promised that he would be back in Ponyville for the visit sometimes later on. They said goodbye to each other, only for a short time afterwards. When Zecora went back into Ponyville, it happened that some of her friends like Applejack, Rarity, and even Twilight had asked her how where this new zebra were, since Applejack had mentioned his name to their other friends. They were actually very eager to know more to meet him, but Sakura explains that that was not possible because he isn't in any FP force anymore. In fact, he even left about a few days earlier on his travel. But she explains that he might be back at some point later on, but she didn't exactly know when. So everything went back to normal for Sakura, making some potions, in the forest, traveling some, find some new herbs, and but one day she in fact heard a knock on the door quite early in the morning. She wasn't even expecting any pony to be there, not even Appleplover first of all. When she was opening the door, who else stood there but Fausto? Fausto was standing by the door, and she was not even expecting him because, in her mind, she believed Fausto was going to be on a different, far away from her, in a different part of the kingdom, exploring. But she asked him why he was there all of a sudden. He explained that he could even stay away from her for some reason, and he asked if he can come inside so he can better explain over tea, which she did. She gave her some tea, and they started talking. And it turned out, just about a week after that he left Ponyville, he was very eager to know more about Zecora, even though they had only been interacting for a short period of time. It felt like they were connected. He couldn't even explain it. He tried to forget about her and try to focus on his travel. But for some reason, he could barely even focus on that. And she even appeared in his dreams from time to time. And his meeting, and according to their traditions in the culture, having a dream of somebody appearing for frequently could either mean there was something between them, maybe some sort of unknowing connection, or maybe some romance feelings that hasn't even come to realization for this pony or zebra out of this. She even explained that she even also had some dreams about him a couple of times, but that was mostly because after when he left. So he asked her if she would be willing to maybe be with him. And she was a little bit surprised of this question. But she said that she would actually be willing to be trying at least to maybe date Fausto. So, but the same day, they actually went in town. She wanted to introduce her. Zecora wanted to introduce Fausto to some of her friends. Even when she mentioned that he had no problem to being introduced to some of her friends in Pwnville. He was well accepted about to meet her friends, and when they went to the castle, in fact, Twilight and her friends was even there talking about something when they heard a knock on the door, and Sakura was standing there with Fausto. They were actually surprised to see them, but they let them in. For the next couple of hours, they actually spent a lot of time talking to Twilight and her friends, and they actually learned from the beginning when they came there that Fausto and Sakura were now a couple. Even though they had asked if how this even happened, and Sakura just explained how. But it was something about it. And even when Rarity did ask if they would live together, where would he live? Would he live in Pwnville or still in Every Forest? And both said Every Forest, since they felt more home to them after living in a small town. But there was one topic that Applejack asked. Even if they were to get married, would he give up his traveling around the world? Or he would continue to do that as normal, meanwhile as Sakura is back home? And he said that he might go on his travels from time to time, but not maybe as more often, but more maybe as couple of times in a year. And even Sakura was asked if there was wouldn't be any problem for her, but she smiled and said that wouldn't be any problem because she would actually accept and understand that it would be like holding him back in one place. But she was really happy to at least that happened. And in fact, after the first meeting of with her friends to Fausto, the relationship between Fausto and Sakura actually remained strong. Even after they had been dating for about maybe 2 months, they went back to Farazi that she had promised the parents, she would be back as more often as possible. And in fact, when they was introduced to Fausto, since they already knew about him, they were really happy to see that their daughter actually been dating some opponent by this point, or at least a seep. Even Faustus' mother was really proud of her son that found a zebra or at least any pony to be with that made him really proud, happy. And she had even said that Faustus' father would have been so proud of him. Hearing those words made him cry out of joy, knowing that his father would have been happy to see his own son fall in love with some pony. And for the next couple of months afterwards, though, they went on many dates, like happened to the movies in town, or maybe had some picnics, or something like that. But even today, most of the time they spent in Every Forest. So to them, having a romance was maybe just sitting in the forest, watching the sunset or the sunrise together was the most even considered as a romantic dates for them also. But after they have been dating for about 2 years, something did happen. Because one morning, Fausto was gone. Apparently, he decided to leave Ponyville for on one of his travels. And in fact, he did leave a note to Sakura to telling her that. But he said that he won't be gone for long. He will be gone maybe for about 2 weeks or so. He was going on somewhere in the Crystal Empire's area or something like that in the World Kingdom. And after all, and she didn't mind that. But left, but not even less than a week and a half later, he came back. And this time, he has something very special to show her. But he didn't want to show that right away, because he even took her to the park in town, where they talked and sit down so that when he actually proposed to her. And it turned out the reason why he left and go to the northern part of the kingdom. He wanted to get a special ring for her, something special. He, in fact, had made a friend who was a jewelry maker who lived in the Crystal Empire, who'd made a very special designed rings or necklace that was specialized in that. She asked him why not go to in Porterville or some other places close by, or maybe Camden, and why go as far as Crystal Empire to make a ring? And he said that he wanted to make a very special. As she looked at it, it in fact there was shimmering like stars in it, but it was not even no crystals in that. And he explains that it was a golden ring, but it contained tiny pieces of crystal somehow made the special glowing in the dark or something like that. That surprised her a bit. As she looked though back home later that evening, she in fact was right. The ring was somehow given a small glow, like a dim glow or like white and yellow. And she was very happy now though. Because even the same day when he did propose to her, all their friends was informed. They were really happy for Zecora. And including when they went back to Farazi but a week later, they turned out they didn't even tell their parents about this big news. Because when they went to Zecora's parents first, they saw this ring on her and they actually asked what was the ring about. When they both looked at each other and smiled, they were in fact now engaged, was getting ready to get married in the next couple of months or so. They were really excited, including Faustus' mother could not be more happier. And was right. They decided to have their wedding in Polneville at Sweet Apple Acres with the next 2 months. They had invited both Faustus' mother and some other extended family, and including Zecora's family. Zecora had asked if Applejack were to be her bridesmaid, and that Applebloom could be the ring bearer, and even Faustu, which had pretty much getting close to being Macintosh and Spike as friends. And Macintosh was asked to be his best man, and he said yes. Even at the party afterwards at the ceremony, everybody had this a great time. They really had so much great time. There were a lot of dancing, food, and but both families could see how happy they were together. I mean, for all this time, Zecora had even had even realized that she felt lonely. Even she hadn't even realized it for herself at first. But when she met Faust, it was something that he was a missing piece in her life. And now when she's married with Faust, she could have been more happier. They even went to a tropical island for about a week. And that was in fact a gift from Twilight as their honeymoon. And there they had just this great time. swimming in the oceans, go sightseeing, and everything they wanted to do. But just 2 years later, they both announced they were expecting a fall within the next few months. And they even learned they were expecting a boy. When both families were really heard about this news, they couldn't be more happier. And they even had revealed the name of their newborn son. They had decided to name their son after Fausto's father. When his mother heard that, she was crying out for so much joy. She couldn't even believe, but she said to Fausto that his dad would have been so proud that his own grandson would be named after him. And a few months later, the son was born. They named his son Kotakoto. He was really helpful as a colt. He always helped his mother finding the herbs that she needed. And in fact, even as a colt, he in fact had found this potion making as a very interesting. So he often helped his mother making potions, like for anything that was required or needed in Pulmonville. In fact, he found that as a very good spark and interest. In fact, he wanted to do potions himself when he was older. And he actually helped his mother so much as he decided he wanted to continue her work after that she was old enough to not to work anymore. And she was really happy that he wanted to continue her work for the next generation. And in fact, he made this as some sort of promise. He wanted to make this as some sort of a family business that continue the next generation of his own family in years later. He would be teaching his own children the same ways that his own mother teaching him. He wanted this kind of teaching of medicine, herbs, and potions to be taught for the next future generation within family. Hearing those words made Zecora tearful-eyed. She was proud of her son, taking this potion making quite seriously. And in fact, he even opened a small stand in Ponyville where he sold some of the potions. And in fact, when Ponyville's hospital was getting low on some of the painkiller medicine. In fact, he made a lot of quality of some of the painkillers, herbs, medicine, even herb tea for the hospital for replacement. And the hospital for that was really proud and really happy that he was willing to give so much time in making it and give that to them. And in fact, during his time of being taking over his mother's business, he had fallen in love with a Mary from Poland. They in fact even got married after they'd been dating for about 3 whole years, and later had 2 daughters and 2 sons together. They couldn't have been more happier. But for Zecora and Fausto, if Zecora didn't have even come across this camp in every forest those years ago, she may never have even encountered Fausto in the first place. And she may never have, even if she had never met him, she would not have found her soulmate and having such amazing family with him. And even if Fausto had never even thought about traveling to every forest in the first place, he never even him would not have even found or even encountered his soulmate. Both of them actually realized if that Fausto never had even came across every forest as a one destination, they would never have even found each other. And for that, They were really happy that the chance or randomly happened that they came across in every forest all those years ago. In fact, they were really happy to admit for the very first time all those years ago. And the love between Fausto and Zecora had remained such strong over the years. The bond between them remained such strong. And this is how Zecora and Fausto found a true love and got a family together. The end.